everybody, it is Gail here. I have figured out everything, I think, technology-wise. I figured out life. I figured out books. I don't know what I figured out. I figured out tea. Welcome to the launch party for this one, Divinity 36. Here is a copy of the actual book. It's all very exciting. Yeah, look, proper fat book, all the words, so many words. Right, I was sort of prepared this time around, and then I film these things on my phone. Believe it or not, it seems to work best. So I was all prepared, and then I accidentally shut down my phone. And then I was like, took forever to put it back up again. So I'm a little discombobulated because of that. As per the voting, I am wearing the turquoise dress with the mesh topping, which I don't think actually won the competition, but it just goes with the book so well. Look, the arch of the dress and the little arch of the scallops, and notice my glasses also match. So I'm sorry, I had to be all matchy-matchy for today's launch party. Welcome everybody, thank you all for saying hi, and Lavender is demonstrating if you would like to say where you're tuning in from. It's like one of my favorite bits. I know, it just never gets old. I'm just sort of a natural globe trotter, so I love knowing that people are sort of tuning in from all over the globe. It makes me really happy. Hi Charity, hi everyone. Right, before we get started onto the nitty gritty of fun and good times, I'm going to answer the questions I always get. And I was like super prepared this time, everyone. Like, don't expect it in the future. But there are links for this above. So today we are going to be talking about Divinity 36, which is out in the world. It's been out just over a week at the time of this conversation, and so assuming that most people maybe haven't finished it yet, we're going to keep this conversation spoiler free. So, but you should feel free to ask questions about the world or the series or whatever, and I will try to answer them in a way that is spoiler free. How's that for a promise? But remember, if you ask a question, put a question mark at the beginning. So that's what we're talking about. The second book in the series is already written and it is out for pre-order. I'm just doing the last little bit of finessing this month before it officially gets loaded into all of the systems. So there, again, there's a link for that one in either up, above, or below, depending on how you're watching this. And then, because I get this question all the time, the lipstick that I am wearing is super cheapy. It's just this one from Revlon, and I put a link for that as well. It's just a high gloss lippy, and it comes off on everything, which you'll see when I talk about my tea in a second. But I do love the color, and it is good for video because it has that, shine to it. But yeah, it's Revlon Ultra HD Vinyl Lip Polish. And it does feel nice, like it feels kind of like a, like a chapstick or something. So that's what my lippy is. And then the other question I get, and I hope you all are joining me in celebrating with some sort of tea or nibbly bit or beverage of choice. And if you'd like to tell me what you're enjoying, I would love to hear about it as well in the comments. I'm using this teacup, which doesn't look great like that, but let me tell you, it looks very pretty from above, which of course is sort of matches my outfit. And I am drinking an oolong. It is this one. It is my Fulci milk oolong. It's a Taiwanese mountain oolong, and I am brewing it in this teapot today. And I talk about both the tea and the teapot in my Epic Tea post. So you can either Google Gail Carriger Epic Tea post, or again, I remember to put a link. Ha, look at me with the links today. And then I don't know if I will have time to actually eat it, but I am celebrating consumption-wise with a little special curd tartlet from my favorite local bakery. And this is passion fruit. So I have a little sweet nibble. I thought oolong, I actually picked the tea based on the nibble. So I got that little celebratory nibble bit, and I thought the oolong would go really well. I like the milkiness of the oolong with the tartness of the passion fruit. What other business bits do we have to cover? My big Heroine's Journey presentation is coming up. So if you're somebody who teaches about writing, or is a writer, or is interested in writing, this is basically the big thing I do that this book was eventually written on. So it's kind of like an all-day seminar, basically, where I go through a lot of what the book covers, but we will also, I also take Q&As and I do stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, I do it through Writing the Other, and I only do it once a year. So this is it. This is the only online version you get. It's not a permanent course that I teach. I just do it this once. Yes, there is the option, if you're like in the wrong time zone, of a slightly lower price for it. I think it's like $50 for a recorded version access later, or $75 if you want to tune in person and pick my brain as a part of it. So yeah, that's the Heroine's Journey with Writing the Other. And once again, I remembered the link. I'm so proud of myself. And with the linking, I'm chuffed. It's a one-woman operation, so like I can't like pause while I'm doing this and go find a link and pop it in for you. I have to like remember ahead of time to put it all in the header or the description. So I'm feeling pleased with myself. And that is the minutia of business with Gail. I'm going to take a little sip of my delicious oolong. I love this tea. And then I'm going to take a look and see what kind of questions we have. Oh, Rachel, you're so sweet. People are saying they're proud of me. I'm pretty proud of me too. You know what I was realizing? So I was trying to crunch the numbers with this book, because one of the things people always ask is, what number book is this? And then I'm like, well, are we talking full-length novels? Do the novellas count? Are we talking number of published things? Like, I never know how to answer that question. But sort of calculating wise, I feel like I've been very tidy with this series, because the third book of the Tinkered Starsong series is going to come out on Solas's 15th birthday, and I think there is a way to calculate it as my 30th book. So there's all of this sort of synergy happening with the series, which I'm really pleased with. So I think this book is probably number 27 or 28 or something like that. Might be, by some calculations, it's more than 30, depending if you put the short stories in there and other stuff. So do we count the manga adaptations as their own thing, or do they fall under Solas? I don't know. This is the thing about having written as much stuff as I have, is you eventually do lose track of it all. So I'm going to scroll through and see if we've had any initial questions already. Everyone say hi. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you all. Oh my goodness. What a delight. I hope you're having yummy, celebratory beverages and tasty bits. Yay. Oh, we have a question. There's a question. Ty wants to know, how did I end up on the word pantheon for the group? Ooh, that's a fun question. So I was sort of raised on Greek mythology, not for any cogent reason to do with my upbringing or personal history or anything. I just think my parents really liked Greek myths, and I had this one really cool book with pictures of the gods and stuff in it called Delormes. It's a French book of Greek mythology, and a lot of the way that the drawings had been done in that book were taken from red and blackware Greek pottery. So there is a possibility that book is also responsible for me becoming an archaeological ceramicist. I've always loved black figure and red figure ware. I just never studied it. I mean, I studied it loosely, but I never specifically excavated or studied that type of pottery, because people know a lot about it. There's not much to learn about it, so I never researched it. But so I had this book of Greek myths, and so I just like the word pantheon. I mean, it's a Roman word, but like I like the idea of the word, the pantheon of the gods, and I knew that I was going to call them gods because I wanted to sort of tie the idea of celebrity worship and actual religious worship, and I feel sometimes like the experience that people have when they're in a concert of their favorite band is a little bit like the euphoric experience that people would have in like the old preachers of like the 1950s, the tent raisers, you know, or even now if you go to like a mega church or something and there's a real rousing speaker. I feel like there's interesting parallels between the way the human brain works with highly immersive entertainment and religion. So yeah, so that's why I use the word pantheon. And cantor is also an old ancient kind of word. It's not, I did dabble with the idea of using the Greek chorus, but I thought that was that already has a meaning in music. So I went with cantor instead. So there's sort of that kind of thing where I borrowed quite a few words from ancient Greek and ancient Roman mythos to allude to the sort of multifaceted component of like worshiping at the altar of a group, of a celebrity group. Well, that was a fun question to start with. It actually ties into the fact that, I mean, and this is an immediate thing, so if you're tuning in, on YouTube later, I'm afraid this is probably no longer going to be relevant, but it will be available, which is directly after this, I'm going to end this live, and then I'll probably just immediately do another one, which is going to be really short. And it is just going to be me reading all of the weird words in this series for you. So all of my made-up words and alien races and names of characters and stuff. So you can hear me say them, so you know how they're going to be pronounced in my head. And then it'll be in a blog post, and in the later, probably next week sometime. And in the blog post, I'll do all of them typed out so you can follow along with me and you can read and see and all that sort of stuff. And that blog post is going to have some stuff on the language and the linguistics of this universe and that sort of a thing as well. So hopefully that will be useful and helpful to y'all as a sort of adjunct to why I chose some of the words. So in some cases, I chose words like pantheon that have meaning, maybe a sort of more ancient meaning. And in other cases, I chose words that are made up. And so then you guys get confused often about how you're supposed to pronounce it. Honestly, you can pronounce them any way you want in your head. I'm not really that fussy about it, but people really like to hear me say it, so hopefully that'll help. Right, I'm scrolling through to see if we have any other starter questions. Lavender has a question. Shocking. Yes, the deco vibes. Yes. So Lavender's asking, I never wanted to bring the parasol past World War I, and I'm pretty open about that. I just don't really like to think about what might have happened to my characters or anything after that particular date. But I do love Art Deco. My personal very favorite sort of stylistic jewelry movement is actually Art Moderne. But Deco is very near and dear to my heart stylistically. Yeah, and you can read about how the cover came to be and sort of the dossier that I put to but I basically said to the cover art designer, space opera, but World War I propaganda poster. And that's how we kind of got this look. And yeah, the deco thing was a very conscious choice. I wanted the kind of symbolism of it, and I did want to tie to the fact that I made my career and once wrote mostly historically set stuff. So I wanted a little bit of tie to it, but mostly by being super stylistic, then we don't have to get really fussy about how the aliens look or anything. They can kind of just be sort of hominid representative. And it keeps the cover art a lot cleaner. And I really wanted the excuse to have a deco cover. I'm sorry, I just like it a lot. It's cool. It's really pretty. So yeah, that's why. You're right, Lavender. You caught me out. I like the style of it. Personally, yeah. Personally, I don't wear a lot of those cuts in clothing. I tend to wear stuff that's sort of more 1950s-ish, just because my figure isn't super flattered by the 1930s and 1940s. Oh, some of the 40s stuff, but anyway. Lavender, no! Sorry. There's a little K-pop moment happening. Our Lavender is saying that they got to see Mamamoo in concert, and I'm wildly jealous. That is fantastic. So jealous. Ty has another question for me. Are there going to be any influences from other, in real life, religious pantheons? Speaking in terms of like the Olympian gods or anything like that, no. I don't really draw on the way those pantheons or even sort of superhero teams or pantheons are drawn in history or in modern fiction. The actual structure of the 6 pantheons and what the gods look like and how they behave and all that stuff is more based on like having to put a group performance on. So more like circus performancing and combined with musical performances and stuff. So yeah, I don't draw much more from the ancients. Julia asked, have I read the comic book Wicked and the Divine? Fairy gods as pop stars, only more bloody. I have not. Yeah, I've been sort of out of the comic book world for a while. So I used to read a lot of comics, Marvel in particular, in the 90s. And then I picked up and ran with manga for a long time in the early 2000s. And then I sort of got out of graphic novels for a while. And I integrate one or two once in a while, and you'll see me recommend them. But it's not, I don't read them as voraciously as I once did. I feel like I spontaneously bought like 3 new ones recently. So clearly like maybe that is opening back up again. But yeah, that is, I'm kind of out of touch with the graphic novel world. It's hard to, there's a lot of content being generated these days. It's hard to keep up, as I'm sure you know. Robert wants to know how I came up with the names in the series. It really depends. In this particular instance, I will say I was really careful to check. So if I came up with a name and then Googled it and it meant something in another language, or it meant something in English or something that I didn't like, then I would change the name. So at the time of writing, most of the really strange names, the ones that aren't based on obviously obviously Earth names, I was sort of double checking to make sure. I just didn't want to like be accidentally borrowing somebody else's culture or doing something or saying something bad, or making a negative character have a name that means something positive in a different language or something like that. Like I just wanted to be careful about it. So at the time of publication, which is now June 2023, most of those names, when I Googled them, nothing came up for them. So that's kind of intentional. So if you try, you probably won't find much, which is not the way I usually write names for anybody who knows me. I tend to write names that are kind of, or I would say 50% of the time I write names that have like foreshadow elements or stuff. Now, so some of the names do kind of mean things, or they're things in other languages or whatever that is like, that I've bastardized, for lack of a better word. But in general, some of them are syllabic things that I found sounded nice to me. Some sort of start with a Latin root. Some start with a like an Asian root. Like I've been studying Thai, so the Thai language is glorious and super fascinating and interesting. So I've taken a few little elements, like syllabic elements, and borrowed some of those. It's very tonal, so it kind of appeals to the sort of musical side of me. In general, though, one of the conceits, which I never point out in the books, but you may or may not pick up on, is that the Daisy all have, those are the aliens, they all have 3-syllable names. And so, therefore, all of the sifters in all of the pantheons, all of the Daisy in all the pantheons have 3-syllable names. And they have this conceit where all of the Cantor gods are supposed to have 2-syllable names, and all of the Grace gods are supposed to have 1-syllable name. So there's a line in the first book where one of the Daisy says that Fex has a Grace name. And that's what they mean, is that Fex is coming to the table with only one name, which all gods only have one name. And also with the fact that it's only 1 syllable. So he's sort of like, and that was kind of me playing with the idea that he could maybe have been a Grace had different circumstances conspired. So he has this grace ability and this multifaceted component to his nature and to his genetic manipulation. And that is kind of tied to this little nudge, nudge, wink, wink over the name. So that's one of the things that's one of the kind of world rules I gave to myself. So when I was naming all of the dicey characters, I then had to come up with 3-syllable names for them. And that was just, and I chose ones that kind of to my ear sounded sort of melodic and alien, and so when you'll hear me talking and with the pronunciation guide, you'll hear how I say the dicey names, and they should sort of roll in a musical way, and they're all 3 syllables. And incidentally, I came up with that idea because I've been watching too many K-dramas, and one of the interesting things about Korean names is that most of them are a single syllable family name, which is always said first, and then a 2-syllable or a double barrel given name, which is always said second. And I just found it, I mean, not always, there are 1-syllable given names, but they're much, much, much less common. And I just found it super interesting that there was this sort of syllabic, which is based on the fact that it's 2 characters and things like that, or very few characters for names. And I just sort of found all of that super interesting. And I was like, oh, what an interesting, like, rule, a social rule to give yourself, that a name has to have a certain number of syllables in it. Ty asks, was Fex's character influenced from attachment style trauma response school therapies? Oh, Ty, working hard on the migraine drugs. So sort of. What I did for Fex was a lot of research into refugees, and like some of the psychological kind of white papers and things. But also, like, I basically have a best friend who is tantamount to a refugee, and so I picked her brain a lot about what that was like, what it was, and what it was like to be the child, and she is the child of actual refugees, and so what it was like growing up in that environment, what kind of behavior patterns the adults in her life had, being like not just kicked out of their homeland, but being unable to ever go back. Like, what was that experience like? So yeah, there was some interview stuff, and if you get the hardcover, I think it's also in the digital, but the dedication is to her. So yeah, there's that component. So that's kind of how I went at climbing into Fex's brain. But yeah, this sort of adopted loneliness and disassociation, also this idea of safety and how important physical safety, and Fex does not realize that he has sacrificed kind of emotional safety, and become sort of numb because he's been so obsessed with physical safety. Lavender asks, speaking of manga, would I want to see Tinkered Starsong as a manga? Well, it certainly would make a good one. I would want to see Tinkered Starsong as anime more than anything else, quite frankly. I think it would make a great, live action, not live action, a great animated feature of some kind. I mean, it would be very hard to do live action, that's for sure, because it's so alien. But I wouldn't be against a manga or a graphic novel. I love them, so yeah. Annie asks, color is an important part of the cover. Have I decided on the cover for books 2 and 3? Loaded question. So I have had a lovely consult with my cover art designer, who I adore. We're now besties, I gotta tell you. And, but he's had a family emergency, so he's kind of on a bit of a break right now, so I don't know. I basically said I'd like the covers to look pretty next to each other, both in spine form and in like front-facing form. So I don't want them to clash with each other. And I'm not particularly married to any color scheme for book 2, but I do have a really core idea on how I want book 3 to look, but I'm not necessarily sure it's gonna work with the deco. So you know, so I have a much more intimate back and forth relationship with my cover art designer for these books than I've had with any previous designer. And I've always had really good relationships with my previous designers, but generally with the photo manipulation or even the vector work, this cover is vector. I basically just say, this is what I'd like it to look. They give me examples. They give me the basic, and I say, make these changes, and then we maybe have one or two other back and forths, and then we're done, right? Whereas with this cover, there's like tons of back and forth thing. We're just constantly in conversation. These covers are also very expensive, so I don't feel bad about asking to make sure it's all as pristinely perfect as I want it to be. But it does mean that basically I said to Paul, like, here's what I want for 3. Here's 2 is pretty open. I have the sketch of how I want them to look, but we now have to reconcile those sketches with the iconography as we're developing with the first book. And then we'll see. So I'm sorry, that's not a very satisfying answer. I don't know. I'm looking forward to finding out what Paul gives me for the second book. And the third one, I'm not going to reveal because it's such a risk that what I want might not work. So I might be writing a check that I can't cash if I tell you what I asked for. So you'll just have to live in suspense. Sorry. Pay attention to the trope. Charity says that the dicey culture has a base 3 cultural structure so far. Should we expect math puns and pickup lines? Charity, you're so funny. No, but you are correct. It is base 3. They have 6 hands. Everything is in 3s. Like, that is why the names are also 3 syllables. Like, I'm not being tricksy or anything. I'm being quite blunt with them. But yes, the 3 thing. Pay attention to the 3 thing, because everything is in 3s. What they believe is in 3s, you know. So if what you're learning about them and you've only learned 2, it means there's probably more to come. So, yeah, so that is definitely vital to the tenor of the book. But I might have 1 or 2 math. I do like a pun. There's probably puns in there. I'm not sure if any of them math. I can't remember. It was a lot of words, everybody, to have written 3 books back to back. That is many, 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 many thousands of words. So I don't remember everything that I wrote. And they all muddled together in my head because I wrote them one after another. Why the long hair? Because I knew I wanted the Dicey to have this sort of like thin crest thing and be entirely hairless. And then like sort of fetishize and obsess with hair and other people. So that's why the long hair. I'm using it to highlight sort of aspects of culture where one culture is super interested in something about another culture that they don't have, whether it's a physical appearance thing or a food or whatever. It's very common in human history to see this happen. So it's just a cultural touchstone moment. And I just like the idea of them being obsessed with like giving people hair extensions and stuff like that. I just think it's just funny. It's just me, quirky. Lavender wants to know if I can give a timeline between Divinity, 36, Credlat, and 5th Gender. Credrat, you will learn in the second book exactly how it correlates. So Mora isn't mentioned, but some of Mora's consequences are. So it'll give you a very, very good idea about the time frame. So don't worry about that. You'll learn about Credrat. 5th Gender, I don't know how it relates time-wise. Not like... We're not talking, I mean, this is sci-fi. We are not talking hundreds of years or even decades, I don't think. Probably everything's occurring around the same time. 5th Gender might be slightly earlier or slightly later. They don't, the Galloway and Triss and Dre and the space station don't really come into these books, so it doesn't really matter what their time frame is. Credrat's the only one that has any kind of liminal impact. And in the second book, I'm pretty sure in the second book you learn exactly how it timeline matches up. So don't worry about that. Rachel asks, as a writer themselves, I've been on the fence about querying an agent versus self-publishing. What are my thoughts? It really depends on your genre, is my thoughts. I've written steampunk alternate reality and I believe it takes up the region area music by the music. Well, Hamilton's a good pitch. It might be a bit dated right now. I don't know is the answer. I mean, it's been ages since I've queried, so I don't know what agents are looking for right now. It depends on whether it's YA or not. I always find it's not a bad, whether you want to end up self-publishing or traditionally publishing, it's not a bad life lesson as an author to learn how to query. Because you need to be able to craft a pitch, and whether you self-publish or trad publish, you'll need to be able to craft that pitch for the rest of your life as an author, an elevator pitch, a book description. You'll be pitching either agents or readers or editors or whatever for your whole life as an author. So it's probably a good idea just to learn that skill set, and querying and learning how to craft a query letter can be really helpful with that. So I would say that. Also, I hate to say this. Actually, I don't hate to say this. This is a fact. You need to get used to rejection. All of us write stuff that people don't like, and we get nasty reviews, and we get nasty emails, and we get nasty letters, and we get nasty comments, and we get trolled, and all of this sorts of thing as a writer. So the most likely thing that's going to happen when you query agents is you're going to get rejected by them, and that's a good life lesson too. So you start to develop a thick skin over your baby. So I would say it's probably worth trying at least a little bit, and if you get silence, that's telling as well. Silence, generally speaking, from both agents and publishers simply means they don't think the book is going to sell well enough to make it worth their while. It's not a commentary on the quality of the work. It's just a commentary on how they perceive its commercialism. Now, it might still sell in self-publishing well enough to make it worth your while, but they just don't think that it will in trad. So that's all that a rejection means. So I guess that would be my advice. And you can give yourself a timeline. I'm going to try submitting it for a couple months, and then if nothing happens, I'll move on and start researching self-publishing. The other thing to know about yourself when you're trying to decide between the two is what kind of personality you have. Are you good at small business and organizing things and managing a career for yourself? Or would you rather hand the lion's share, not all of it, but the lion's share off to an agent and an editor? There are some authors I know who are very successful authors who would do extremely well independently published and understand that they would make more money that way, for example, but just don't want to do it. They just don't want the fuss of it and the spreadsheets and the organization of it. I happen to love that part. I love data. I love spreadsheets. I love organizing things. So being the self-published side really appeals to me. I'm kind of a control freak. Don't tell anybody. So I like it, but I understand that there are author personalities, that they really don't like it. They just don't want to do it. So that's another thing, is sort of know yourself, not as a creative, but as a business person. Are you somebody who works better under deadlines imposed by other people? Are you somebody who works better when they're, quietly alone and being told what to do and then typing away and then doing it? Or are you somebody who likes to have interactions and back and forth, like I was talking about when I'm dealing with a cover art designer? All right. Again, I'm only looking at questions that have question marks at the beginning. So, Ty asks, do space stations have domes or just planets, moons, grounds, body? It depends on the space station. So some of them, the space station itself might kind of, have domes. I'm sorry, I thought you were asking about bubbles. Atmosphere bubbles. Yes, everybody's got, anyone who can gets a dome. If the Dicey can figure out how to build it, they'll put it on the thing, whether it's a moon, whether it's a planet, whether it's a space station. I wish you would ask this question a long time ago. I might have plopped a space station into book 2 just to demonstrate that they could also have domes, but I didn't think about it. But yes, the space stations can absolutely have a dome. Everyone can have a dome, at least a cupola, which are the little baby domes that have the rebroadcasts in them that the cafe is, for example. All right. Annabelle asks, what's my inspiration for the fashion and looks for the artists, divine designers, modern, etc.? Well, this is really fun and interesting because, and it especially comes into the second book, they go to an awards show in the second book because of course they do, which means I have to dress them fabulous. At least the ones who wear clothes, I have to dress them fabulous. And I definitely took some hints from specific places and times for those. We'll have a conversation, ask this question again in a couple of months, and we'll have a conversation about where that influence came from. But look out for that scene, because I had, obviously, it was fashion. I had a wonderful time with it. But actually, most of the inspiration, like, you know, you can think of somebody like Schiaparelli or what have you, but mostly I was thinking in terms of, Cirque du Soleil, but like they need costuming, particularly anybody who's doing any kind of gracing that like adheres to the body. And also the Dicey being aestheticists are like, if you have what we consider as the Dicey a nice body, we would like you to show it off. Like, so skin tight is probably one of the things they're really wearing a lot of. But because they're moving, they're going upside down, they're going, you know, Fax is literally bouncing off the walls. So, yeah, so most of my influence on the costumes on the stages for the dais are tight kind of circus performance style costuming, because they need to be able to contort and move and get around. And of course the Dicey are just like nodding at, at modesty. They kind of, you know, they have little robes or like little loincloths and things, like they can't be really bothered with clothing. They do it for form's sake, because the sapiens get bothered by when they wear nothing at all. Which again, it's just me being amused. I like to write aliens that are really alien, which means when I'm thinking about the way they think about our culture or humans or humanity, everything is on the table for contestation, including the concept of clothing. And again, archaeologist, anthropology, I'm used to thinking about the human condition in terms of what's worn, what we carry, what we do, how we talk, all of these things. And so all of that is up for negotiation if I'm dealing with alien races, which is one of the reasons I love to write sci-fi. Right, moving along. Or Joe, yay! You get a dome, you get a dome, you get a dome. The comments are very funny. Ty asked if I have Pinterest boards for the series. Yes, I do. Yeah, you can go to my Pinterest and the Tinkered Stars. I think you might even be able to search Pinterest for Tinkered Stars board, and there it is. You know, it is inspiration. It's not exact. So, you know, I pinned some cool images of like people in alien makeup and kind of different kinds of domes and all that sort of thing. And, you know, as I putter around and add more like research blog posts, and I have lots of extras for the series, lots of extras. There'll be more pins and stuff like, so they're still pretty active boards, even though the books are already written. But yes. And I have some really fun blog posts coming that, you know, like there's too much content for the newsletter. So that's like, I picked a bunch of K-pop singers, so that influence the voices, especially for the second book, because in the second book you meet more practicing cantors. And so I picked like the singer, like combinations of singers that I think will help you kind of understand what I'm trying to describe in the books when Fax and Missit and Co sing. So I have a blog post for that and stuff coming. So don't worry about it. There'll be lots of Met Gala. Annabelle asks, could there be... Oh, Annabelle, I am not going to answer that question. Sorry, spoiler. Moving along. Frankie, sorry that they came like Frankie. It's okay. All right. So, just making sure, I think probably Sally has already shared this over to the Parasol Protector group, but please clock in if you have. And I've reached the end of the comments so far, and this has been fun. Oh my God, I love it when you have questions about my world building and stuff, because you make me have to articulate it and think about it. So I'm waiting for additional questions if you have them, and while we're doing that, I'll have some more tea. Oh, it's so lovely to talk to you all about this book. It's such a relief to have it out in the world. Annabelle says all their questions are spoilers. Yes, exactly. So, sorry, Annabelle, but you're clearly picking up on a lot of my little tricks and foreshadows. So, clever reader, but also I'm not going to answer them. I don't want to spoil it. Ty says it's shared. Okay, great. The group is shared. It's okay. Don't worry if you're late. It's all good. I'm happy to have you all here. Yeah, I am. Frankie says that they're happy to see me so excited, and I totally am. I'm really joyful about this series. I really got to explore a lot of concepts and things that I don't normally get to explore because it is sci-fi. I feel like sci-fi is such a special vehicle for having complicated conversations about things you can't really have in other genres. So, and also just the pure joy in getting to write a series back to back to back and not having to worry about the fact that one of them is already published and now I have to make sure the next book, I can't go change anything because it's already published. I didn't have to do that with this series. I got to just do them all. Oh, it's very satisfying. All right. Lauren asks, is there going to be music in the audiobooks? No. I really wish, but I think it's just the high production value. It's just too far out there, even for me. I actually know a wonderful composer who's responsible for the music in Cardrat. That's all original. That's an original score in Cardrat. And, he's always on board to, work with me and my team and my audio team. I have a whole audio team because it is not my skill set. But there's already complications about to come down the pipeline. Book 2 is going to introduce a character that has a very unique voice that a human narrator can't do. So I was like, great, I'm already causing problems for my audiobook people. So I've already had to ask Brian, who's my audiobook producer, if he'd be willing to digitally countersync this one, the dialogue for this one character throughout the next 2 whole books. So I'm giving them enough work is the short answer. So yeah, there won't be. Plus, to a certain extent, I kind of want the music to be the thing that the reader would want it to be. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but we all have different taste in what kind of music we love. Much as I talk about K-pop and I love K-pop, I am a creature who loves K-pop in part because I came into my musical taste during the 90s and they reference the 90s. They use our riffs. They're they're open about this. But I love the nostalgia. The weird thing is that K-pop is kind of nostalgically 90s to me. But the 90s it's full of terrible music, pop music. And then I went off to the UK and I was living there in the other 2000s, so I was into sort of bubble pop and stuff like that. I'm very influenced by what Dickens would call the sadly popular. But, and then I got classical music education accidentally in college and things like that. So my taste is informed how my taste is informed. Your taste in music is informed how your taste is informed. Some of us like opera, some of us like classical, some of us like jazz, some of us so when you're reading as readers, or as listeners, if you're listening to the audiobook, personally, I want you to be imagining your favorite concert experience or what kind of form that would take and what that music would be and mean to you. That's the joy of writing fiction, in that it can impact your imagination. It's a little bit I try to describe characters in such a way so you can kind of see them the way I see them in my head, but you don't have to see them exactly the way I see them. I want you to bring your relationship to the character, to how you see them and how you feel about them and all that sort of thing. I don't know, I think fiction for me is kind of more a dialogue with my readers than maybe for some authors. I want you to I want to provide an experience that you can step into, like a hug, that is warm and friendly and fun, but that is not necessarily structured in such a way that I'm forcing my exact vision on you. With these books in particular, with sci-fi in particular, I think. So that was a long answer to, is there going to be music? Fran asks me, what are my favorite 3 K-pop groups? Which is an unbelievably loaded question, because there are so many out there. But to display my acumen, I've been very interested. I'm interested in the history of K-pop, and like again, I'm sort of studying it as a movement, as a cultural phenomena. I will pick a second, third, and fourth. How's that for you? So my second gen favorite group is Beast, which became Highlight. Not fair. I mean, I also love SHINee, right? Like, I also love lots of groups, but I don't really stan or bias strongly. I'm too old, and I have too many likes, and they change all the time, So I'll like fall in love with one member of a group, and then I'll be like, no, I like another, no, I like another one. But for second generation, Beast is probably, although SHINee is probably the best known still active, but I do love Beast a lot. They're a little bit more poppy. And Before You Ask, Beautiful is my favorite of their songs. Okay, for third gen, which is the big one, I probably am mostly a B2B girl these days because I love their singing. They are the probably the best singers. Fran, if we can have a whole conversation about this, about Mamamoo and B2B and Big Mama and the super singers of the industry. But it's B2B you should check out. That's BTOB. We will be talking about them. They show up in the blog. But I actually entered via GOT7. So those are kind of my third geners. And then for fourth gen, I'm less as excited by fourth gen in general. They tend to be way more towards rap, and they tend to be way more into production and performance, which is fine if you're into like the artist performance aspect of it. I'm not as much for all of what I've written. But I like Stray Kids quite a bit. I do like their rap line, and I like a sort of smaller group called P1 Harmony. Again, I like the rap line a lot. So there it is. I picked some for you. But I'm forgetting others that I'm sure I really love as well. Is there a Spotify playlist? Yes, there is. You can search Spotify for Gail Carriger, and you will find. I only have the 2 playlists up there. But it is not super tailored. So the Spotify playlist, because I have a YouTube playlist as well, but the YouTube playlist is structured for each book, kind of loosely. So there's like about 20 songs for each book, and they kind of loosely parallel the themes and plots and chapters of those books. But I can't really do that on Spotify because YouTube allows me to have like live performances and performances that don't have proper releases, where Spotify does not allow me to do that. So Spotify is more cobbled together like K-pop Gail loves. And so I just have the 2 playlists. I have one that is like a bunch of my favorite K-pop, and then I have the second one, which is kind of a history of the genre of music. Also because sometimes for the playlist for these books in particular, I chose the song because of the way the music video visually is themed. So K-pop does have a whole relationship with SciFi, where they'll do sci-fi music videos. And so I have a bunch of those on my playlist. So I don't necessarily love the song, or the lyrics are particularly germane. It's actually the visuals. So that's why the YouTube playlist is the one I would recommend. But I will be bopping links. I probably should bop a link to the playlists in the pen. I should probably bop a link to the playlist in the chirp for next time, shouldn't I? Chirp playlist links. There. Spotify. Yeah, I went to the effort of creating a Spotify account specifically so I could make playlists for this book because I knew people would ask about it. And like I said, I have 2 blog posts in the works, but they will probably be when the second book comes out because I'm a little worried they're kind of spoilery for the second book. One of which will talk specifically about the sort of cantors and developing the voice and the singing structure, and the other one will talk about some of the groups and just sort of K-pop in general, and the playlist and why I chose some of the songs I chose. So yeah. But I'll pop those links in the chat for you next month. Rachel asks what music inspired me for this novel, and I will say, like we've already just had a whole discussion about K-pop, but actually the number 1 on pretty much all of my playlists is not a K-pop song, it's a Japanese song. So yeah, and it has specifically to do with the way he sings, what he sings, and that music video. So yeah, it's a great song. I cannot pronounce his name, of course, but it is called Sunshower, and it is killer. So that's usually the top song on the playlist. So like you go there expecting K-pop, and suddenly there's a Japanese singer, but he's amazing. So Charity asks about the nutritious noodle dish. Is it based on a real life noodle dish or just winging it and add veggies? So the dicey noodles in particular are based on this one starch that they have access to, which is called spud. And spud actually comes up quite a bit. So in, I'm not going to spoil why, but like the food source, so it's, and spud I sort of developed as kind of, it's like a potato, but it meets a breadfruit. I did a bunch of breadfruit research for a fantasy novel I was writing a while ago, and I've eaten breadfruit. It's not great, but it is particularly high in protein for a starch. It requires all this preparation. And so I sort of combined the idea of potato and breadfruit, and then maybe a little sunchoke, artichoke-y kind of flavor going on, to develop the high protein starchy thing that basically everybody's eating all the time in the books in various forms. So it has kind of rice properties, potato properties, and wheat properties, so it can be used to like make bread or chips or noodles or whatever. So yeah, it's one of those food sources, and you'll get to meet it eventually. Like I will reveal unto you what a spud looks like in real life in the course of these books, because it's me, so I developed that bit as well. But in terms of like a nutritious noodle dish, that's all I was thinking about. I was thinking about the sort of noodles are kind of this vehicle for hydration, since they're often in a broth, and and broths are by nature, especially bone broths, very, very nutritious. And then I'm a huge ramen person, but ramen to me is like noodles, broth, and then all the things, whatever's in my kitchen, an egg, some leftover chicken, a bunch of vegetables that are quickly stir-fried, some fresh herbs sprinkled on the top. And so I imagine that's kind of what's going on here. It's just like a good way to get a balanced meal into most different kinds of alien species, because you can kind of adapt those components to whatever diet restrictions an evolved species from an alien planet might have, so long as they can eat the base core ingredients of a liquid broth, a noodle, and protein and vegetable additions. Sally's saying that they love the music for Corvette. Thank you, Sally. I will tell Danny that you are a fan. Danny Shade is the name of the composer of the soundtrack for the Corvette. What's the word I'm looking for? The Crud Rat full cast audio production. There's the term I need. Sorry, Dan. I just flicked. Ty asks, so is Fex's hair more anime blue or raven blue? Ty, you're asking the serious questions here. Initially, yes, in this book, shall we say? That was a bit of a spoiler, but you know it's coming. Fex's hair is anime blue, like bright blue, like candy blue. There, that's the answer. I'm gonna say no more. One of my best friends is lurking in the comments at the moment, and I would just like to say that we will have a whole like K-pop thing if we're gonna do this road trip together, because it turns out that if you get into a car with Gail and I am driving and therefore at least partly in control of what is being played, I will give you a K-pop education, whether you like it or not, because I keep doing this to poor long-suffering friends. It's like, oh, you're in my car now? Let's learn about K-pop. The AB, for the record, is having none of this, but many of my other friends are a little bit more open to suggestion. Charity asks, is that a tentacle pen or a pretzel? It's a tentacle. It's a tentacle ballpoint pen, which I think is like a whimsical joke gift kind of thing. I've had it for years and it has still not died, and I use it all the time. So it's funny when that happens with an inanimate object. Debbie asks if it's called the Tinkered Starsong K-pop on Spotify. That certainly sounds like it, yes. But like I said, I'll put a link in, don't worry about it. There'll be a direct link. But yes, if you Google Spotify, if you Google Tinkered Starsong, it should come up. Or hopefully Gail Carriger. I don't know how Spotify works, it's very mysterious to me. Yeah, June is saying that Pair glasses, which are the glasses I'm currently wearing, came out with a Kraken topper, and I was very tempted by it, but I'm not wild about the color profile, and I'm hoping if they've done one octopus, they'll do another octopus in the future. But you are right to point it out to me, because I very nearly did snap it up. This is Pair eyewear, incidentally, which has different frames that you can put on. I'm wearing the teal ones, obviously, to match the book. Sorry, I'm just giggling at comments. Right, I think we're probably at the 15-minute mark. There's been quite a few of you. Tea. I totally forgot about my tea. So hold on, I'm just gonna have a little bit more tea before it becomes 4 o'clock, and then Gail magically can't drink any tea anymore because then she won't sleep tonight. Stephanie asks, so crud is that color? Yes, crud is that electric blue, kind of almost neon blue color, and mermals are also that color. So for those of you who have not read Crud Rat, we are talking about Crud Rat really quickly. Vex is a crud rat, so he has this like vibrant electric blue anime colored hair. Mermals, which are little creatures that appear in that universe and in that book, also are that color. And so is crud, yeah. It's this like bright blue. Julia's asking for specifics. Honestly, specifics about, I used to use special effects blue when I was dyeing my hair blue, so that would be the color, but like everything fades when you're doing candy colored hair on a human, so I don't know what current blue hairstyle colors, vendors, products is the word I'm looking for. All right, I think we should probably stop questions because it is 4 on the nose, so I'm just going to finish up the last ones that we've got. June asks, what pair style frames are these? These are older ones. They're one of the specials, and I think they were like the peacock feather or something. I don't know. I have a few that I have chosen because they have designs that I really like, but mostly I need to get the pair I wear that's going to match the book cover. So that's how I'm going to go forward in life. For those of you who have been reading me for a very long time and following my blog since the dawn of time, when I was on Blogspot or even LiveJournal way back when, you will know that I used to, and maybe still do, have a policy of buying myself a new pair of shoes whenever I had a new book release. And I used to try and get the shoes to sort of match the book. And it kind of moved that over to pair eyewear now. So until I have like a complete rainbow collection, and yes, I did order a rainbow pair for June. But until I have a complete rainbow collection of all the different colors that I could possibly need, I will probably be doing that instead of shoes. I have enough pairs of shoes. So yeah, so these are the pair I bought for this book cover, and we'll see what color I'm in for the next one, because I don't know yet. Sally asks about mermals, and Sally, my darling, that I am not going to answer. Ella, yes, June, these are the Ella frames. Yeah, I knew about pair, but did not buy any pair eyewear for a really long time because they didn't have the cat eye, and then they finally brought the cat eye in, and I was like, well, we've degenerated to joking about glasses and LiveJournal and shoes and me admitting to having enough pairs of shoes. Seriously, I have a whole bookcase of shoes. I think I need to get rid of some shoes before I bring in some new ones. Plus, I don't have that many in-person events anymore. So, like, who am I going to show my shoes off to if not to you? I need to do more cons is the thing. Then I can show my shoes off again. And on that note, it's been absolutely lovely. Thank you for joining me in talking about Divinity 36 and the world of the aliens that I've crafted. And I'm so glad you're enjoying it. And don't worry, the second one's coming really soon. It's in production already. And I won't be continuing this live. I'll be ending it, and then I'll immediately just start another one. And in that one, I'll be doing the pronunciation thing. But I won't be taking any questions or anything. It's just, I'm just using Facebook ruthlessly as a place to post the videos so that Kelly can come in and rip it down later. So, because we have a system. So I don't want to mess with the system. Bye, everybody. Have a lovely rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you next month.